The grease stain on the wall had been there for 3 years. Daniel Wright knew because he had scrubbed at it every month without success, watching it fade from dark brown to a lighter shade that looked almost artistic. Now, as he packed his belongings into recycled cargo boxes, he paused to touch it one last time. Strange how a permanent mark could outlast a dream. His restaurant occupied a cramped corner of Gateway Station's lower commercial district, wedged between a broken water recycler and a shop that sold counterfeit data chips. The hearth had never been fancy. Mismatched tables, chairs welded from scrap metal, a kitchen barely large enough to turn around in. But it had been his, built from savings and hope after he left Earth 15 years ago. The hope part had run out 6 months back. Daniel wrapped his cooking knives in cloth, each one familiar as his own hands. The paring knife with the chipped handle, the cleaver he had sharpened so many times the blade curved slightly, the chef's knife his mother gave him before he boarded the transport off-world. She died 2 years later. He never made it back for the funeral that a Quilner family stopped outside, pressing their 3 eyes against the window. The father held a young child who waved tentacles at Daniel. Regular customers from the factory district. He had always given them extra portions because the kid was small for her age. Daniel waved back and turned away before they could see his face. The automated food dispensaries were winning. Clean, efficient, cheap. Nobody cared that the nutrient paste tasted like recycled plastics. Nobody except the people too poor to be picky, and there were fewer of those willing to spend credits on real cooking when they could get calories for a quarter of the price. His debts had piled up like dirty dishes. Rent, supply costs, equipment repairs, station fees. The final notice glowed on his data pad. Vacate within 24 hours or face legal action. His shuttle to the outer mining colonies left in 6 hours. Hard labor, terrible pay, but it was work. He would survive. Daniel shut off the heating units one by one, watching pilot lights die. The kitchen grew colder. He had spent so many hours here that he could navigate it blind, knew exactly 3 steps from stove to prep counter, 2 steps to the cooling unit, 1 step to the spice rack he had built himself. The photographs came down last. Images of satisfied customers from a dozen different species. A bondman elder who claimed Daniel's soup cured his chronic pain. A group of Venari dock workers who celebrated their union victory with a feast here. A young human couple on their first date, nervous and happy that he sealed the last box and looked around the empty dining room. Dust particles drifted through air that smelled like old cooking oil and regret. The tables sat abandoned, chairs pushed in neatly as if waiting for customers who would never come. His hands were shaking. Daniel picked up his bags and walked to the door. The lock clicked behind him with a finality that made his chest tight. He tested the handle twice to be sure, then turned toward the transit platform. Something tugged his sleeve that he looked down expecting a loose thread, maybe a caught strap. Instead, he found claws. Small ones, hooked gently into the fabric of his jacket. They led to tiny scaled hands, then to a body no bigger than a house cat, covered in iridescent blue-green scales that caught the corridor lighting that a dragon. Not the massive, warship-destroying kind from the old Earth stories. This was a Dravik, one of the rare species from the Outer Rim. The creature looked up at him with eyes too large for its face, golden and wet. "Don't go," it said in heavily accented galactic standard. The voice was young, uncertain. "Please." "Hungry." Daniel stared. Dravik were endangered, nearly extinct after their homeworld got caught in a corporate war 3 decades back. Seeing one on Gateway Station was like finding a diamond in a trash compactor. This one was clearly malnourished. He could count the ribs beneath the scales, see how the wings hung limp against its back. "Kid, I can't help you," Daniel said, gently trying to free his sleeve. "Restaurant's closed. I'm leaving the station." The dragon's claws tightened. Not painfully, but with desperate strength. "Everyone says you feed people. Everyone says you help. Not anymore. Please." The dragon's voice cracked. "Haven't eaten real food in so long. Only paste. Hurts my stomach. Makes me sick." Daniel closed his eyes. His shuttle left in 6 hours. His belongings were packed. His future, bleak as it was, waited in the mining colonies. Every sensible part of his brain screamed at him to walk away, to not get involved, To save himself, he thought about his mother's last message before she died. Take care of people, Danny. That's what matters. Not money, not success. Just take care of people. The dragon looked up at him with those impossibly large eyes. Daniel cursed under his breath, pulled out his access key, and unlocked the door to the hearth. One meal, he said, pushing the door open. Just one. Then I really do have to go. The dragon's wings fluttered, scales catching light like scattered stars. Thank you. Thank you so much. Inside, Daniel flipped on the kitchen lights and started checking what ingredients remained. The dragon settled at a corner table, tail curling around the chair leg. Watching his every movement with an intensity that made him uncomfortable, he fired up a heating unit. Muscle memory took over as he pulled out vegetables, checked the protein stores, found some grain flour that was still good. His hands moved through familiar patterns while his mind tried not to calculate how much this would cost him in time and credits he did not have. "What's your name, kid?" he called out. "Pip." "All right, Pip. Let me make you something worth remembering." The stew started coming together like it always did. Vegetables chopped into even pieces, protein cubed and seared, broth simmering with herbs Daniel had grown in recycled containers on the kitchen windowsill. Simple food, but made with attention. That was the difference between cooking and just heating things up. Pip watched from her table with unblinking focus. Her nostrils flared at each new scent. When Daniel pulled bread dough from the cold storage, her wings actually lifted off her back before settling again. "Haven't had bread before?" Daniel asked, shaping the dough into rolls. "Never had anything before. Just paste." Pip's voice carried a sadness too deep for someone so young. "The dispensaries give it free to refugees. Keeps you alive." Daniel slid the rolls into the heating unit. "How long have you been on the station?" 3 years. Maybe 4. Hard to remember. Pip's claws traced patterns on the table surface. "Got separated from my clutch during evacuation. They said temporary housing. Said someone would find my family. Nobody ever did." The stew needed another 10 minutes. Daniel leaned against the counter, really looking at Pip for the first time. The dragon was young, probably equivalent to a human 8 or 9-year-old. Her scales showed stress marks, dull patches where they should shine. Malnutrition, definitely. Maybe other health problems too. "You've been alone all that time?" Pip nodded. "Station services gave me a sleeping pod in the lower residential block. Go to education center sometimes, but the other kids." She trailed off. Daniel understood. The Dravik had a bad reputation left over from the war, even though it had not been their fault. Propaganda died slower than the people it targeted. The timer chimed. Daniel ladled stew into a bowl, placed 2 warm rolls beside it, added a small container of herb butter he had made last week. He brought it to Pip's table and set it down carefully. "Careful, it's hot. Blow on it first." Pip stared at the bowl like it might vanish. Her claws hovered over the spoon, uncertain. "I can really eat this. That's generally how food works, yeah." She picked up the spoon with shaking hands, dipped it into the broth, brought it to her mouth, and tasted. The reaction was immediate. Pip's eyes went wide, pupils dilating. Her wings snapped fully open, knocking over the condiment holder. A small puff of smoke escaped her nostrils. Then she started crying. Daniel froze, unsure what to do. "Is it bad? Did I mess something up?" "No." Pip sobbed, already taking another spoonful. "It's perfect. It's so perfect. I forgot food could taste like anything. I forgot people could be nice." She ate like she was afraid someone would take it away. Between bites, she kept crying, tears mixing with the stew. Daniel sat down across from her and waited. When the bowl was empty and the bread reduced to crumbs, Pip finally looked up. "Why did you do this?" "You were leaving. I made you late." "Yeah, you did." Daniel checked his data pad. 4.5 hours until his shuttle. "But my mother raised me to feed hungry kids, even if they have scales." Pip laughed, a sound like chimes. Then her expression turned serious. "There are others, like me, refugees, orphans, people the station forgot about. We take care of each other, share what we find, but it's hard. Really hard. How many others?" 15, maybe 20. Changes sometimes. Pip's wings folded tight against her back. "I told them about you. About how you never turned anyone away, how you gave extra food to people who needed it. They wanted to come say goodbye, but I said I would come alone first. Thought maybe if you met me, if I asked nice, you might. She looked down at the empty bowl. Daniel heard the unspoken request. His debts would not pay themselves. The mining colonies would not wait. His shuttle ticket was non-refundable, but 20 kids are going hungry on this station. Before he could respond, shapes appeared at the windows. Small faces pressed against the glass. A Quilner child with 3 eyes that reflected the interior lights. A young Bond then whose skin showed signs of radiation exposure. 2 more Dravik, even smaller than Pip. A Venari youth missing one of their 4 arms. They did not come inside. Just watched with the same desperate hope Pip had shown. Daniel stood and walked to the door. He should send them away. Should stick to his plan. Should save himself because nobody else would. He opened the door instead. You might as well come in. Can't cook for 1 dragon without feeding her friends. They entered slowly, uncertain, like they expected him to change his mind. 15 beings of different species, different ages, all wearing the same expression of careful hope. They found seats, crowding around tables meant for half their number. Daniel returned to his kitchen and started calculating portions. He had enough ingredients for maybe 1 meal for everyone if he stretched it. After that, his supplies would be gone. Worth it, he decided. One last good thing before he left. He was pulling out mixing bowls when someone knocked on the door frame. A tall Venari stood there, well-dressed in merchant clothing. All 4 arms were folded in a gesture of respect. Daniel, right? The Venari asked. That's me. If you're here to collect debt, get in line. Actually, I am here to offer you an investment. The Venari stepped inside, looking around at the gathered children. My name is Grisk. I have been watching your restaurant for some time. I think we should talk business. Daniel glanced at Pip, who shrugged with her wings. His shuttle left in 4 hours. Talk fast, Daniel said. I'm on a schedule. Grisk's mouth curved into what might have been a smile. I think you'll want to hear this. Grisk settled his bulk into a reinforced chair while Daniel continued cooking. The Venari watched the children with an expression that seemed almost nostalgic. 40 years ago, I arrived on the station with nothing, Grisk said. Refugee from the Venari trade conflicts. Slept in maintenance corridors, ate from trash recyclers. A human dock worker named Patricia found me stealing food scraps. She could have reported me. Instead, she brought me to her home and fed me for 3 months until I found work. Daniel stirred the expanded pot of stew, adding water and vegetables to stretch it further. That's a nice story. What does it have to do with me? Patricia died 5 years ago. I never properly repaid her kindness. Grisk gestured with 2 of his arms at the restaurant. I've been looking for someone who operates by the same principles. Someone who helps without expecting return. You are that person. I'm broke and leaving the station in a few hours. Your debts total 47,000 credits. I will pay them in full, plus provide operational capital for the next 6 months. In return, you continue running this establishment with one change. You accept me as a silent partner. 20% ownership, no management control. Daniel stopped stirring. Why would you do that? Because Patricia taught me that wealth means nothing if you do not use it to continue the cycle of kindness. Grisk pulled out a data pad. I have had my financial people review your situation. You're not a bad businessman. You simply refuse to compromise your principles. You charge less than competitors, give free meals to those who cannot pay, use expensive ingredients when cheaper alternatives exist. Admirable, but unsustainable. Pip was listening intently from her table, along with all the other children. Daniel felt the weight of their attention. With proper backing, Grisk continued. This restaurant could serve hundreds instead of dozens. The lower districts need places like this. I provide the financial stability. You provide the heart. Simple partnership. Daniel wanted to argue, to find a trap in the offer. But he had been in business long enough to recognize sincerity. Grisk's body language showed no deception. His financial data was legitimate, and the contract on the pad looked straightforward. If I agree, things have to change, Daniel said. Can't just be a restaurant anymore. These kids need more than 1 meal. What do you propose? Daniel looked at Pip, at the others. An idea was forming, probably crazy, definitely complicated. They work here. Learn cooking, help with service, get fed regularly and earn some credits. Real job training, not charity. Give him skills and dignity. Grisk's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Child labor laws on the station are strict. Apprenticeship programs are legal. Educational exemptions exist for refugees. Daniel had looked into this before, during better financial times. We register as a vocational training center. They learn, they work reasonable hours, they get compensated fairly. Everything legal. One of the young Dravik spoke up, voice nervous. Would we really be allowed to work here? If you want to, Daniel said. No pressure. But if you're serious about learning, I will teach you. Cooking, nutrition, how to run a business. Useful skills anywhere in a galaxy. Pip's wings fluttered. I want to learn. Please. Others nodded, voices overlapping with agreement. Even the shy Quilner child raised a tentacle in support. Grisk made a notation on his pad. Very well. I will have legal documents prepared. The partnership begins immediately. Debts cleared within the hour. I assume you will need to cancel your shuttle ticket? Daniel thought about the mining colonies, the hard labor, the bleak future he had resigned himself to. Then he looked at the faces around his restaurant. Hope looked back at him. Yeah, he said. Cancel it. The children cheered. Pip launched herself across the room in an awkward glide, landing on Daniel's shoulder and hugging his neck with surprising strength. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you so much. Over the next week, the Hearth transformed. Grisk's money cleared the debts and funded repairs Daniel had been putting off for years. New equipment arrived, along with a proper cooling system and an expanded stove. The dining area got comfortable seating that could accommodate different species. Pip became Daniel's shadow, watching everything he did with intense concentration. She learned to dice vegetables, to test cooking temperatures, to balance flavors. Her natural Dravik fire-breathing ability turned out to be perfect for searing meat. The Quilner child, who introduced herself as Opal, took to customer service naturally. Her 3 eyes could track multiple tables at once, and her gentle demeanor put nervous diners at ease. The young Bonnan, Reed, handled dishes with meticulous care despite his radiation scars limiting his mobility. Word spread through the lower districts. The Hearth was not just serving food anymore. It was building something new. But success attracted attention, and not all of it was friendly. 2 weeks into the new arrangement, a station health inspector arrived. Rawl was a Centaurian, rigid and professional, carrying scanning equipment and a data pad thick with regulations. He went through the kitchen with aggressive thoroughness, checking temperatures, testing surfaces, reviewing permits. Daniel followed him around, answering questions calmly. Everything was in order. He made sure of it. Rawl found violations anyway. Minor things, technical infractions that other restaurants ignored. The refrigeration unit was 0.3 degrees outside optimal range. One prep table was 2 centimeters closer to the stove than regulations specified. The air filtration system, though functional, was an older model not on the current approved list. These issues must be corrected within 72 hours, Rawl said, his voice emotionless. Failure to comply will result in immediate closure. Those are not real problems, Daniel protested. You're targeting us. I am enforcing station health codes uniformly. Good day. After Rawl left, Pip looked at Daniel with worried eyes. What do we do? Daniel leaned against the counter, frustrated. Then an idea occurred to him. If Rawl wanted everything by the book, Daniel would give him something impossible to criticize. We invite him to dinner, Daniel said. Tomorrow night. Private meal. Show him what this place really means. Rawl arrived exactly on time, as Daniel expected. The inspector stood at the entrance looking uncomfortable, probably suspecting a bribe attempt. I don't accept gifts from establishments under review, Rawl said stiffly. Not a gift. Just dinner. Off the record, my treat. Daniel gestured to a table he had set up specially. You don't have to eat it. But I am cooking anyway, and the food will go to waste if you don't. Rawl hesitated, then sat down with obvious reluctance. His body language screamed distrust. Daniel had spent hours researching Centaurian cuisine. Their home world had been destroyed in a solar event decades ago, leaving the species scattered across the galaxy. Traditional foods were rare, mostly forgotten. But Daniel had found old recipes in archive databases, modified them for available ingredients, and prepared a meal that should taste like home to someone who had not been home in a very long time. He brought out the first course. A soup made from mineral-rich vegetables, seasoned with compounds that mimicked Centaurian sea salt. Raul looked at it without touching his spoon. "Where did you learn to make this?" Raul asked quietly. "Research. Figured you might appreciate something familiar." Raul finally tasted it. His expression did not change, but his hands tightened on the spoon. He finished the entire bowl in silence. The main course came next. Protein prepared in the traditional Centaurian style, with grain cakes and a sauce Daniel had spent 2 days perfecting. Raul ate slowly, methodically, but Daniel noticed the inspector's rigid posture gradually relaxing. By the third course, Raul was no longer eating like it was a duty. He savored each bite, and when he thought Daniel was not looking, his eyes were wet. "My mother used to make grain cakes like these," Raul said finally. "Before the evacuation. I was young, barely remember her face, but I remember the smell of her kitchen." Daniel sat down across from him. "How old were you when your world was lost?" 8 standard years. Spent the next 10 in refugee camps, jumping from station to station. Worked hard, studied harder, got certified as a health inspector by the time I was 25. Raul set down his fork, pulled myself up from nothing. Nobody gave me handouts. Nobody made exceptions for me. And now you're doing the same to others." Raul's face hardened. "I enforce regulations. That is my job." "Your job is keeping people safe," Daniel said. "But those violations you cited, they are not safety issues. They are excuses. Someone told you to shut us down, and you are finding reasons to do it. That is not true. Then why are you really here?" "Because it is not about zero point 0.3 degrees of temperature variance." Raul was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed, looking suddenly tired. "The Upper District restaurant owners complained. Said you were drawing customers away from their establishments. They have connections with station administration. Pressure was applied. So you are harassing us because we are successful. I am caught between enforcing law and keeping my job." Raul pushed his plate away. "You think I enjoy this? I see what you are doing here. I see those kids learning skills, getting fed, having hope. But if I do not follow orders, I get replaced by someone who will be even worse." Pip had been listening from the kitchen door. She walked over now, her scales reflecting the dining room lights. "You said nobody gave you handouts, but someone must have helped. You were 8 years old. How did you survive?" Raul looked at her, then away. "A human family took me in. Temporary foster placement. They had their own children, very little money, but they shared what they had. Kept me for 3 years until I was old enough for the youth work program." "What happened to them?" Pip asked. "I don't know. Lost contact when I moved to another station. Never went back, never tried to find them. I was too focused on moving forward, on proving I did not need anyone's charity." Raul's voice grew quieter. "I told myself I earned everything alone. Easier than admitting I owed people I could never repay." Daniel stood and started clearing plates. "You could repay them by helping others the way they helped you. It is not that simple. It is exactly that simple. You have power in your position. Use it for good instead of letting corrupt people weaponize you." Raul stood up abruptly. "I should go." "The violations?" Daniel asked. The inspector pulled out his datapad, tapped a few commands. "Upon reinspection, all issues have been resolved to satisfactory standards. The Hearth passes health and safety requirements." He met Daniel's eyes. "But watch yourself. The people pressuring me will not stop. They have other methods. Let them try." After Raul left, Pip hugged Daniel's arm. "You think you will really help us?" "Maybe. Maybe not. But we planted a seed." Daniel started cleaning up. "Sometimes that is all you can do." 3 months passed. The Hearth grew steadily. More kids joined the training program. More customers filled the tables. Daniel's cooking improved as he experimented with fusion dishes that combined techniques from different worlds. Pip had grown noticeably larger and healthier. Her scales now gleamed with proper nutrition, and she had developed real skill in the kitchen. She created recipes that blended human and Dravic traditions, discovering flavor combinations that surprised even Daniel. Then came the attack. Daniel arrived early one morning to find the front windows shattered. Graffiti covered the walls with anti-alien slurs. His storage room had been ransacked, food supplies ruined with chemical contaminants. Broken equipment lay scattered across the kitchen floor. Pip was already there, trying to clean up, tears streaking down her scaled face. Opal sat in a corner, all three eyes crying. Reed swept broken glass with shaking hands. "Who did this?" Daniel asked, though he already knew. The Upper District restaurant owners, escalating their campaign. The door opened. More kids arrived, saw the damage, and started crying. Then something unexpected happened. Customers began showing up. Not to eat, but to help. The Zethian construction worker from 2 floors down brought materials to repair windows. A Kalari artist arrived with paint to cover the graffiti. Station residents Daniel barely knew came with cleaning supplies, tools, and determination. The by evening, the hearth looked better than before. The new windows were stronger. The walls bore a beautiful mural of different species sharing a meal. The community had rallied. Grisk arrived late, surveyed the repairs, and nodded with satisfaction. "This is only the beginning. They will try again." "Let them," Daniel said, watching Pip laugh as the Kalari artist let her add a small dragon to the mural. "We are not going anywhere." The legal notice arrived during the breakfast rush. New safety regulations, specifically targeting mixed-species food service establishments. The compliance requirements were designed to be impossible. Separate preparation areas for each species type, equipment certifications that would cost hundreds of thousands of credits, staff credentials that took years to obtain. Daniel read it 3 times, then crumpled it and threw it across the kitchen. "They cannot do this," Pip said, reading over his shoulder. "They just did, and it is technically legal. Station Council has authority to update health codes." Daniel slumped against the counter. "We have 2 weeks to comply or shut down permanently." Grisk arrived within the hour. His 4 arms moved in agitated patterns as he reviewed the regulations. This was pushed through overnight. No public comment period, no warning. Someone paid significant bribes. "Can you fight it?" Daniel asked. "In court, eventually, but that takes months, maybe years. Meanwhile, you will be shut down." Grisk set the papers aside. "Unless we find another approach." That evening, Daniel called a meeting with all the workers and regular customers. Over 40 beings crowded into the hearth, representing 15 different species. The energy in the room felt tense, worried. "We have a problem," Daniel started, "and I need ideas." He explained the situation. The impossible regulations, the 2-week deadline, the obvious corruption behind it. As he talked, faces around the room grew angry, frustrated, scared. Then Pip raised her hand. "What if we change our legal status? The regulations target restaurants. What if we're not a restaurant anymore? What would we be?" Grisk asked, interested. "A cooperative. Community-owned. Everyone who works here gets a share. Customers can buy memberships." Pip had clearly been thinking about this. Different legal category, different regulations. And we could raise money from membership sales to fund the fight against the corrupt laws. Grisk's mandibles clicked excitedly. That could work. Cooperatives fall under different station codes. It would take legal restructuring, but it is possible. More than that. Opal added, her 3 eyes bright with ideas. "If we are member-owned, the community has investment in keeping us open. Shutting us down becomes harder politically." The discussion exploded with ideas. Reed suggested a sliding scale membership so poor residents could participate. A Bondan regular proposed offering cooking classes as a membership benefit. A Zethian dock worker volunteered to help with the legal paperwork. Daniel felt hope rekindling. This was what humanity did best. Adapt, find creative solutions, turn obstacles into opportunities. Within 3 days, they had restructured completely. The Hearth became the Hearth Cooperative, owned by 47 members representing 12 species. Every worker held shares. Memberships sold quickly, with over 200 residents buying in at various levels. The corrupt officials tried to apply the same regulations to cooperatives, but station law was clear, different rules applied. Their legal maneuvering had backfired. Then an unexpected visitor arrived. Solis was a Valerian, tall and elegant, with credentials from the Galactic Health Organization. She had been reviewing health data from Gateway Station and noticed something remarkable. Lower district populations show significant health improvements over the past 6 months, Solis explained, displaying data on her portable screen. Reduced malnutrition, better chronic disease management, improved mental health markers. The common factor is diet changes corresponding with increased visits to this establishment. Daniel looked at the charts. We just cook good food. Nothing special. That is precisely what makes it special. Solis smiled. Standard food dispensaries provide calories but ignore species-specific nutritional needs. Your intuitive approach, combining culinary arts with careful observation of each species' reactions, has created something unprecedented. She pulled up more data. Dravic children showing improved scale health. Bondan elders with reduced pain symptoms. Quilner youth with better cognitive development. The list continued. The GHO want to study your methods, Solis said. Potentially replicate this model on other stations. With your permission, we would provide funding, legal protection, and research support. Pip looked worried. Would that change everything? Turn us into some kind of experiment? You would maintain complete operational control, Solis assured her. We simply want to understand what you're doing right and help others learn from it. Daniel thought about it. More funding meant they could help more people. Legal protection from the GHO would make it much harder for corrupt officials to shut them down. But institutions could be controlling, could strip away the personal touches that made the Hearth special. We need guarantees, he said, in writing. The cooperative stays independent. Workers maintain ownership. No one tells us how to run our kitchen. Acceptable. Solis pulled out a contract. I anticipated your concerns. This partnership is designed to support, not control. As they reviewed the details, station security alarms blared. Something was happening in the lower residential district. They rushed outside to find chaos. Hired thugs were harassing residents, threatening anyone associated with the Hearth. 2 large enforcers had cornered Pip and Opal in an alley. Daniel ran toward them, but Pip's situation had triggered something deeper. The young dragon's distress activated ancient Dravic survival instincts. Her throat glowed orange, then red. Fire exploded from her mouth. The blast was controlled, precise, not meant to kill but to drive back threats. The enforcers fled, singed and terrified. Pip stood panting, smoke curling from her nostrils, looking shocked at what she had done. Security cameras had captured everything. Within minutes, the footage spread across the station network. Public opinion shifted dramatically. The restaurant consortium's hired violence was exposed, their corruption laid bare. The next day, Daniel testified before the station council. He spoke about community, about how Earth's greatest strength had always been bringing different people together, learning from each other, building something better than any group could alone. The Hearth is not just a restaurant, he said. It is proof that cooperation works better than competition, that caring for each other makes everyone stronger. That is humanity's real contribution to the galaxy. The council voted to investigate the corrupt officials. The restaurant consortium faced heavy fines. The Hearth won legal protections and formal recognition. But more importantly, they had proven something worth defending. Solis finalized the GHO partnership that evening. The Hearth would become a model for inclusive food service across multiple stations, with Daniel and Pip leading the research, standing in his kitchen, watching Pip help prepare dinner service. Daniel thought about how close he had come to leaving. One decision, one moment of compassion, had changed everything. Pip noticed him watching and grinned, showing small fangs. Thinking deep thoughts, boss. Just grateful a stubborn dragon grabbed my sleeve. Best decision I ever made. 1 year later, Daniel stood in the original dining room of the Hearth and barely recognized it. The space had expanded into 3 adjacent units, but they had kept the first room exactly as it was. Same mismatched tables, same grease stain on the wall that he still could not quite remove, same handmade spice rack. The new sections included a teaching kitchen where 15 students currently learned advanced techniques, a research lab where Pip and a team of nutritionists studied species-specific dietary needs, and a community hall that hosted everything from legal aid clinics to children's study groups. But tonight, The original dining room was closed to the public. Just family. Pip had grown substantially, now the size of a large dog, her scales brilliant with health. She moved around the kitchen with practiced confidence, preparing dishes alongside Daniel with the ease of long partnership. Her recipes had become station favorites, fusion creations that somehow made sense despite combining ingredients from worlds light years apart. Opal managed the front of house now, training new staff with patient efficiency. Reed oversaw the supply chain, his attention to detail ensuring they never ran out of crucial ingredients. The original 15 kids had all become skilled workers, many opening their own establishments using lessons learned here. Grisk arrived first, carrying a bottle of Venari celebration wine. Rawl came next, now a vocal advocate for the Hearth and similar cooperatives. Solis brought datapads full of reports from other stations implementing their model. They gathered around the largest table. Daniel brought out food, but not the elaborate creations that now filled their menu. Tonight, he made the same simple vegetable stew and bread he had prepared for Pip that first night. The meal that changed everything. Anniversary tradition. He explained, ladling out portions. Remember where we started. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then Pip pulled out a wrap package. We got you something. Well, the whole community did, but I coordinated it. Inside was a book, handmade, bound in real leather. Daniel opened it carefully. The pages were filled with messages, hundreds of them, from beings across multiple stations of a refugee child on a distant outpost, now receiving nutritious meals through a Hearth model cooperative. An elderly Bon then who rediscovered his cultural food traditions through their published recipes. A young human working at a similar establishment who found purpose instead of falling into substance addiction. Each message told a story of lives changed, hope restored, communities built. Daniel read them one by one, his vision blurring. There are over 300 cooperatives now using our model, Solis said, feeding millions across the sector. Your simple act of kindness has rippled farther than you can imagine. It was not just me, Daniel said. It was Pip refusing to let me leave. It was Grisk investing when no one else would. It was every person who helped rebuild after the attack. This belongs to all of us. Grisk raised his glass. To Patricia, who taught me kindness was not weakness. And to Daniel, who reminded me what that meant. They drank. Reed began sharing stories from the early days, making everyone laugh at the disasters and near misses. Opal added her own memories, her 3 eyes sparkling with joy that a small sound at the door interrupted them. Daniel looked over to see a young Kolari watching nervously, even more malnourished than Pip had been a year ago. The child's skin showed signs of severe mineral deficiency. Before Daniel could move, Pip stood and walked over. She knelt to the child's eye level, her wings spreading slightly in a gesture of protection. Are you hungry? Pip asked gently, offering her hand. The child nodded, too scared to speak. Come with me. Let me cook you something special. Pip led the small Kolari to a table, getting them settled with the same care Daniel had shown her. Daniel watched from the kitchen doorway, understanding something profound. The Hearth would outlive him. The lessons would continue, passed from one generation to the next. This was not about one human or one dragon anymore. It was about a principle, a way of treating beings with dignity regardless of their status or species. Pip moved around the kitchen with confidence, selecting ingredients, preparing them with practiced skill. She talked to the young Kolari softly, asking about their favorite flavors, their allergies, their story. The child relaxed gradually, responding to Pip's genuine care. She is good at this, Solis observed. She learned from the best, Grisk added. Daniel shook his head. She is better than I ever was. She understands what it means to be hungry and forgotten. I can only imagine it. She lived it. Pip brought out a bowl of soup, modified for Kolari dietary needs, with bread that would help with mineral absorption. The child tasted it and started crying, just like Pip had a year ago. It is okay, Pip said softly. You are safe here. You matter here. The young Kolari ate slowly, savoring every bite. When the bowl was empty, Pip asked, Do you have friends who need help too? A nod. Bring them tomorrow. We will make sure everyone eats. The child left with a container of leftovers and directions to return the next day. Pip cleaned the table, then returned to the anniversary dinner, settling next to Daniel. You did good, he said. I learned from you. Not just cooking, but why cooking matters. It is not about the food. It is about telling people they have value. Pip leaned against his shoulder. Thank you for not getting on that shuttle. Daniel put his arm around her. Thank you for grabbing my sleeve. Outside, Gateway Station continued its endless cycle. Ships arrived and departed. Species mingled. Commerce flowed. In the lower districts, beings whose society had forgotten found their way to the hearth and discovered they mattered. The original restaurant sign still hung outside, slightly crooked, letters worn by time. Daniel had refused to replace it. Some things should stay the same, reminders of humble beginnings. Inside, the kitchen stayed warm. The stove stayed lit. The doors stayed open. And whenever someone hungry and forgotten appeared at the threshold, there would be someone to say, "Come in. Let me cook you something special. You are safe here." The cycle continued. Kindness rippled outward. Communities grew stronger. One meal, one person, one moment of compassion at a time. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or military might, but the simple revolutionary idea that everyone deserves to be fed, to be seen, to matter. Daniel returned to the anniversary table, where his family waited. Not bound by blood or species, but by something stronger, shared purpose and mutual care. The hearth would keep burning, long after he was gone. That was enough. That was everything.